All right, welcome back to another episode of Behind the Seams. Behind the Seams. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about the industries that we serve. I think that out there, there's all kinds of businesses out there. And so today we wanted to just talk about why we focus on the ones that we do.
Yeah, great.
So we could start with, where we came from, where we're at today, where we're going maybe.
Yeah.
So why don't you give us a little bit, Rob? So what industries do we serve? George Courey, a 115-year-old institutional textile business. What industries do we serve?
Great question. So right now, strategically, we serve three major markets.
Mm-hmm.
We serve the hospitality sector, we serve the healthcare sector, and the institutional laundry sector. So three markets that are extremely important to our company.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not where it started. So George Courey was actually founded as more of a B2C company, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
By George Courey actually selling door-to-door piece goods, so rolled material. Circa
what year was that, Rob? Like
1910?
1910.
Wow.
115-year-old business.
Yeah, so there you go.
And so George Courey, the namesake of the company, actually started by selling door-to-door material, piece goods.
Right. That's your classic B2C, right? Like door-to-door. Do you need some fabric today, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So that was kind of how things started, and it progressed into more of, again, that B2C mentality, having a retail storefront on. If anybody is from Montreal or knows the Montreal area, a well-renowned street called Saint Denis Street. We had a storefront there, actually selling clothing, more piece goods, and we kind of transitioned into a couple of the uniforms back in the day, that sort of thing. And then around the 50s, 60s. We started to see a real opening for George Courey in the market of B2B.
Right.
Yeah. And that's kind of where that journey.
So B2B obviously stands for business to business, which means we don't sell direct to consumer. We sell through other companies, essentially, right? That then serve the end user.
That's exactly.
So Matt, when we talk about healthcare, hospitality, industrial, so what does that mean to you? How do you differentiate between the three?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff.
Thank you.
I think it's while very separate in terms of the industries, I think that they're very much aligned together. And it's amazing that when we look at some of the retail that we've done in the past, how all of the different product lines, while very much tuned specifically to a retail customer in a high-end hotel. But the general foundation of, let's call it a towel as an example, the makeup of that is very much used across the board in all other markets that we serve, whether it's the, so hospitality one, absolutely, and then into healthcare as we move to healthcare, and as we move into industrial, same general towel, just made and constructed a little bit differently, so that skills and resources that we've used to make and source that product from around the globe, we glean a little bit from everything that we do to kind of bring that into.
A towel is such a good product to use as an example because, there is so much stuff that goes on in retail towels, for example. Like you go to the store and you start to feel the towels on the retail shelves. There's so much softener on there. There's so much additives. The way they fold it, it's all an illusion, right?
Yeah.
That's why I love the institutional side because there is no nonsense. There is no, fooling the customer into thinking this is a better quality towel than it actually is. So you got to really know what you're doing. It goes down to the yarn, selecting the appropriate yarns, the right quality, understanding quality, how to differentiate between bad quality, good quality. It's not just fake, right?
And the part of the way we've been able to do that, I mean, once upon a time, we owned a towel mill, right?
Right.
Like, do we want to get into that just for a second?
Right.
It's like
Cambridge Towel. That's right.
Towel mill at Cambridge, Ontario, one of the last standing towel mills in Canada, one of the few in North America. So when you talk about skills and experience of an organization, it's what I love about what we do is not only do we know, because we do know, and we've been doing it for a gazillion years, but we've actually done it. We've owned the towel mill. We've gone into it. We've produced for some of the largest retail customers across the world. So it's pretty interesting.
It is pretty interesting. And another thing that I love about the industries that we serve is, as opposed to retail, it's very predictable in a way. We know it's not seasonal, right? And so for a business, it's so hard to be able to adapt to the seasonality of a company. I'm thinking retail, let's say fashion. It's always changing. I've been doing a lot of interviews recently for candidates for a role that we're hiring for, and for me, doing interviews with people from outside is very important. I've never worked in any other company, right? This is the only company I've ever worked for, so I learned so much, right? We learn so much through interviews, and so it's a logistics role. And every time I'm talking with a new candidate, they ask, well, what's the seasonality of the business? I'm sure you're adapting for Chinese New Year and for back to school and everything. I go, no, you know what? Our 12 months of the year is our peak season. Well, there is no peak season at George Courey.
Like, I'll argue a little bit, Jeff, that there is somewhat of a seasonality when we look at our hospitality side of our business, especially when you look at those peaks and valleys that you get in both the summer and the winter seasons, depending on the market, depending on the geographical location that we're serving. You get some of that. The pool towel market comes in real strong coming up into the summer seasons, especially us up north in Canada. So you get a little bit of that, but you're right. It's still very consistent.
It's so consistent, and product is consistent. So we're able to really focus on what we do best and what our clients like to do best, right? And so, Rob, maybe give us a little bit more about on the hospitality side. So what does that look like for us, and who are our end users at the end of the day?
Yeah. So the way we like to look at the business is the customer experience. So basically, for hotels, the way that we supply or the way that we promote our products is how the end user, so the actual customer that's going to be sleeping in that bed that night, how they're going to feel, what experience they're going to have. And that changes and it's different based on hotel to hotel, right? So you have a 5-star hotel, you have a economical, more budget hotel. Different types of qualities, different hotel experiences is how we adapt to the market. So different quality levels, different budgets, and that is sort of how we do it. So understanding what the hotel's needs are and who they're catering to is so important to how we service them and what type of products we promote. So, you have, Matt mentioned like pool towels, for example, like hotels who have pools. What type of experience outside of the hotel room do they want? We have multiple different ranges of products for hotel pools, spas, gyms, that sort of thing. And we have that lineup. In terms of the bedding, we have pillows we talk about, duvets, we have so many different items that we talk about, and it's all related to the guest experience.
Thank you. That's the word I was waiting for.
So our focus is that experience that the customer is going to have, and this is how we service it. So that's the best way to do it.
I learned a long time ago, when you talk about hotels, for example, the importance of sheets and towels in a hotel, it's really the one thing that touches the guest, literally, right? Like the towel you're using against your skin, the pillow you're putting your head on at night. And so it's such an underrated part of the whole hotel experience, but it's critical in your guest satisfaction rating, right? And so when we talk about motivating our George Courey employees to make sure that we provide the best possible to our clients, is keeping that in mind. Is, this can make or break someone's holiday.
That's right.
If you have a bad sleep, then it's something that you're going to remember, and so it's very important to motivate them that way.
100%. And I go one further. The dreaded bed bug conversation. But that's the last thing any hotel could absolutely have in that big rating on TripAdvisor or Google reviews that says, I got bed bugs or whatever, right? Hugely important. And how do you...
We don't want to hear about your experience.
And how do you... I'm first to put the review. But how do you do that? Well, we have a product line that does that, right? And bed bug protectors that our customers are using to ensure that guest experience extends not only to the things that they touch and experience, but those things that actually protect the investments that our hotels are making in the bed, which is one of the most important investments that they're making.
That's one of the most expensive ones that they're making. So for the time, not only bed bugs, but also just the protection of the mattress, for example, which can be very expensive. These mattress encasements that we supply, we tell it to every single customer of ours, say, listen, beyond bed bug, which is sort of an added value that it adds, it's actually protecting your biggest asset in the room, right? So that the polyurethane backing, it allows no penetration of liquids. That is so important, and that is one of the best things that we can do, because again, not only does that allow for, in terms of bed bugs, guest experience, right, not to have that negative, but also the actual customer being the hotel operator they don't have to worry about the mattress being 100%. That's a big thing.
And going back to specializing in the industries that we do serve, and let's say it for what it is. It's not retail. It's always B2B. It's institutional. It does allow us to, like I said about the softener and the towels, focus on really what's important in a product. And where I'm going with this is sustainability. So sustainability, huge buzzword out there, right? And when you go walk through a retail store that sells higher end linens and everything, they're promoting sustainability. This is organic, that, whatever. And a lot of that is nonsense. I've seen these mills. I've been to Pakistan and Bangladesh and India, and I've seen where they're made. Organic means something very different over there than it does here in North America,
100%.
And so I think from us as a philosophy, we care deeply about sustainability. But what we're able to do because we're B2B and not B2C is focus on what really matters in sustainability. And what that means is we build products to last longer, dry faster, right? And try to make them as close to the end user as possible. And those three things are actually what drives sustainability versus all these fancy buzzwords that you see at the retail level.
100%.
So by focusing on our industries, right, it allows us to cut through that nonsense and provide actual value in the products that we make, right?
Us being a specialist.
Yeah,
absolutely. And knowing again that the customer is not only that guest experience, but also operationally what is important to that customer base, right? Operations. Saving costs, driving that down, the sustainability, the drawing, all that stuff that you just outlined, it's exactly the second part of the conversation that we have with our customers, right? It's not only how do we achieve customer experience and allowing them to have that lasting memory, but also on the cost and the budget side, which is super important. And that is also the value we add. And customers, it's an excellent point.
And awesome transition into our next market, I think that we should be talking about, which is healthcare, right? And healthcare for us has a couple of different flavors to it, right? So certainly from an institutional laundry perspective, and I don't know how many of our listeners out there, I hope they do because they're fans of the George Courey page. So I think that they would know. But, when you look at institutional laundry and how that economics works from the hospital system that doesn't do their own laundry, that actually gets clean laundry delivered every single day and the dirty laundry picked up, so that there's that whole market. But then there's the other market that we also do, which is that long-term care retirement market, which I think is extremely important to talk about in conjunction with guest experience. Because what I'm seeing in the market today, and I'd love your guys' thoughts on it, is how that guest experience from a hospitality customer has now extended into that retirement long-term care, where we have a group of the population, those boomers who are now getting into that older age, who are looking for that same high-end experience that they would get either at home or when they're traveling, but now into their later years, into that retirement home or into their unfortunate long-term care, if that's kind of where they end up.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. George Courey is there at birth. Yeah. So literally cradle all the way to the twilight years, right? And so, we're there. We do baby blankets, receiving blankets, that sort of thing, all the way to the retirement or long-term care home. And you're right. And it's that divergence of hospitality and healthcare. That, for me, is what retirement homes are or long-term care homes are. It's that divergence, right? Yeah. So we don't just focus on healthcare products or just focus on hospitality products, we're able to provide a hospitality experience in a healthcare setting, right?
And I'm finding our clientele is actually looking for them.
Right.
So where once upon a time you had a healthcare specific textile that was maybe a little rougher than one would normally experience in a hotel, or maybe not as that high-end premium experience that you would expect, today our long-term care residents that we're dealing with in our retirement homes are actually demanding that product. So the fact that George Courey plays in both sides of that, both the healthcare and the hospitality side, gives this wonderful convergence of product lines that allows us to kind of swap in between depending on what the guest needs are, obviously, but also budgets, which is something that you mentioned.
Yeah. Right. I think what it also allows us to do is concentrate on other things that are important as well, right? Quality control, all that fun stuff. That is something that's also super important in both industries, right? It allows for us to learn and know what's critical in both. So surgical again or healthcare and surgical being super critical for quality control. That transitions also into hospitality, right? And so it's one of our strengths. And it's something that we kind of back and forth between. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's right. And what's cool is that the products that we make are all made in a similar place. So we're able to do some fun things on the supply chain side to be able to provide that value to the end user, no matter if they're healthcare, hospitality, etc.
So maybe you touch on that a little bit more, Jeff, because it's always something that we talk about. One of the value adds of our organization, that we're not necessarily married to any specific country or any specific mill. And maybe talk to us a little bit about that supply chain, how that works well for us. And you mentioned a couple key things before, which was like productivity. We talked a little bit about, sustainability, right? And you talked about how our different products, right? The 3 points that you mentioned.
Right.
So let's kind of go through that again in terms of the efficiencies of our products and why that's important to some, especially on the healthcare side.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the more efficient you could be in supply chain, then the better the value will be for the end user, whether it's healthcare, hospitality, industrial, et cetera. So we try to do that. So we'll in the same container, just a very simple example, in the same container, we'll have T300 single pick virgin cotton sheets, amazing quality, along with that T130 heavy industrial kind of sheet. We'll mix it in the same container, and we provide value there because you're able to spread that cost, the supply chain cost, among a wide range of different products. And so because we kind of leverage partners, manufacturing partners that can have that wide range of capability, it allows us to provide value in that way. Then the other thing, we talked about 3 pillars of sustainability, right? There's the dry faster, last longer, and make them as close as possible to the end user. And so that's this idea of nearshoring, right? So obviously it's a topic these days with tariffs and where do you manufacture your goods around the world. So nearshoring is very important. And that's why, especially in an industry like for surgical, for example, we decided to make our goods in Latin America, right? So that's very close to the end user, which is the US, Canada for us. But it still allows you to leverage like the labor market in another country, et cetera, and bring those advantages, but provide more real-time inventory for our customers and be able to flow goods easily like that. It also allows us, for an industry that's so important and so focused on quality and quality control, to fly down to Latin America. It takes not long at all, and you're able to go firsthand, monitor production, monitor quality, and be able to bring that stuff in good standing.
Let's talk surgical for a second.
Sure.
Because I love the topic. I think it makes us quite unique in terms of our offering to the marketplace. But let's go back to like thesis days. And maybe you could share a little bit of how did we even get into surgical to begin with, and what was that progression like? Can you tell us that?
I mean, I think surgical industry, the reusable surgical industry as a whole, has changed dramatically over the last 10 to 20 years. And so, yes, one of my MBA final projects was to talk about and do a project on reusable surgical and the business model behind that. And what I saw, and this is now, we're going back, 15 years maybe. And one of the big elements of that, I mean,
I thought he was going to say 50.
I don't know if I'm old, I'm wise.
So wise. You're right. Debatable.
And so I think that, so it was a big part. It was not a big part of George Courey back then. And then I kind of saw the opportunity there, always with the passion for sustainability and how we can bring more of that to our industry. I saw a real opportunity there in the surgical market to promote reusable surgical. I think that in general, reusable surgical provides a better experience for the end user. It's very safe because you're literally, the laundry is checking before each use, as opposed to disposable, where they're batch producing and doing AQL quality checks. And then also, most importantly, is it's fiscally responsible for any healthcare system. It actually is cheaper in the long run to run a reusable program than a disposable program. So anyways, so I looked into this a lot. We did a lot of work on that and saw a gap there in the market that needed to be serviced. And so for the last 15 or so years, we've been developing this product line. And so I think we've done a great job. Court, who works for us, he's our director of surgical. He's really done a great job getting us to that next level. That's right. And it's an important market that we serve. And we like to separate that. We're talking about the industries we serve. We like to separate the surgical industry from general healthcare. And that's on purpose, right? It's because it takes that extra level of 100% quality, of attention to detail. You deal with the FDA. We have 510Ks that it allows us to sell into the US, because it is a highly highly regulated product line.
right.
And so you have to have that extra level of understanding of the industry to be able to even do what we do. And so I think we've come a long way, and I'm excited about the future of surgical. So it's an important industry that we do serve. Yeah.
And come back to that uniqueness about our organization. I think that is something that really does make us quite special, because we could have a conversation, whether it's that high-end boutique hotel, or whether it's that long-term care retirement home, whether it's the institutional laundry who want to just maybe do regular bulk linen, no problem. Do you want to do retail medical? That's great. Mm-hmm. We could do that too. We could do the surgical element to any of those healthcare facilities or laundries. And then maybe our last market that we're just getting into, and I don't know if you want to talk about it, Rob, but the institutional general commercial linen market, which we haven't really kind of launched that yet, but we're kind of going into it, which I think there's a lot of potential there for us as well.
Yeah, it's really strategic. I mean, again, with all of the great points that you guys outlined, right, in terms of our value add and our experience, I think it was sort of a natural progression really for us to get involved in the industrial laundry sector. Mm-hmm. And over the very short period of time we've really focused on it, I think it's been really going great so far. We have a lot of great opportunities, and it seems like the market is really receptive to kind of what we're doing, right? Mm-hmm. When you're promoting and you're kind of outlining all the values that we bring, I think it really just resonates really well with the industry. And I think it's really exciting for us as another chapter in the George Courey history books for us to actually concentrate on it and get started. So yeah, we're
it's about focusing on those industries that there is crossover. Absolutely. So many of the products like microfiber cloths, microfiber mops, like some of the protective wear for clean rooms, that we were already doing all of this stuff, right? Yeah. Talk about bar wipes, terry towels, whatever.
And we get a little back to our roots in uniforms.
Right, too, a little bit of uniforms as well. So it's kind of an interesting divergence. And so I think that's where we're talking about the industries that we serve. The key is to not stray too far away from your niche, right? Yep. And I think that's what we focus on. I think that it's important for us to keep doing that, is don't stray too far away, but don't also worry about extending yourself a little bit and trying to serve other markets.
And I think, like you mentioned, with leveraging our partners overseas, it is essentially the same partners, which that's right. Adding a line of business for them, I think it's just beneficial for both sides, and it just adds that extra little bit for George Courey. 100%. It just gives us that competitive advantage.
And speaking of our partners, I know a lot of them tune into this podcast, the Behind the Seams podcast. So thank you to those people as well. So this has been great. Thank you guys for your time, and looking forward to the next Behind the Seams.
Next one.
We'll see you then.
Good stuff.